Hi there, Steph. Thanks for popping by. So, I've told you in a previous video you would see more Prismacoloring and more Greeting Farm stamp sets, so here they are. This one is called Anya Celebrate, I believe. I hurt my thumb the day I did that video. I literally sliced my thumb with a sharp knife, so I'm struggling to cut around the images. And I went over it later on after the video just to try to make it a little bit more smooth on the edges because it was really, really bad cutting. But what I've decided to do was to cut off the two little snowflakes slash stars that were on the side, because I don't know why they made them so close to the image, because they made it really awkward to cut them out, and they can be really useful to build a background around that image, so that's what I've done. Some people may have decided to leave them next to the image, that's fine, but personally I thought I could get a good use out of them, and if I had found my unicorn pigment ink, you can actually build a really cool background with some unicorn pigment ink and then some colored inks. So something to bear in mind, sorry, for the next video. So as usual, I stamped with my Memento Tuxedo Black. That's pretty much, I have 2 or 3 other inks, but that's the one I use the most. On this Strathmore toned grey cardstock. I colored the dress with 3, I think, different shades of red. I mean, the lightest is actually an orange, but you don't see it that much because it's kind of colored. And then 2 very light tones of peach for the face, and one light tone of peach, sorry, and 1 darker peachy tone to do under the hairline and the jawline and the top of the arms for the shading, basically. And it's quite straightforward. I mean, the space is very tiny, so the work on that image is mostly around the bow and the hair. And I really enjoy coloring the hair, actually, because at some point I thought, oh, it's not going so well. And you will see, I think it turned out actually quite well in the end. I do add a little bit of makeup around the eyes, and I thought it looked quite cool. And then I will retrace all the dark lines with a black gel pen anyway, so you will see me do the lashes and stuff. So for the hair, I start with a light-ish brown. And then a slightly darker brown here, and I have to speed it up because otherwise it lasts forever. If you would be interested in seeing a segment of the coloring a bit slower, I can do that, but please let me know. I just don't want to bore you to death, so I try to speed it up as much as I can, really. So here's a darker, even darker shade of brown, so I'm at, was that 3 shades of brown? I can't remember now. But you know, pick 3 or 4 shades of color of, you know, whatever color you pick, but 3 or 4 different shades, and then I go over and I just add on layers until I completely cover the cardstock. So I think that's the lightest layer based on the color I can see, and I just keep on going, and then I take a darker one and I add darkness around the edges of the hair, and then at the top, and you basically just follow the black lines, really, and you just add shading from there. And here I try to feather a little bit more. So for hair, I find it's quite nice with Copic as well as Prisma to not blend perfectly, because hair is not blended perfectly, except if you dye your hair. In that case, they tend to be all the same color, but if you get highlights, for example, natural hair, they don't all tend to be exactly the same color. So it's quite nice here. You see, I take a much darker brown and I just feather until I'm actually quite happy with it, and you will see at the end, I didn't think I had enough depth, and I will add a lighter color actually to contrast with the darkness of the root, and I think it worked out pretty well, so I'm actually quite happy on that. And you can do exactly the same thing on Copic, except that you can't layer backward on Copic, so once it's too dark, it's too dark. But with the Prisma, it's quite cool because it's dark, but then I added a lighter layer, which was quite nice, so you will see that in a minute. And then here's a bow. I intended to do something different for the bow, but it didn't quite work out as I wanted. I wanted to do kind of a veil. Maybe veil is not the right word. Like a see-through fabric. I've seen people do that and it looks really nice, but I didn't manage to do it. So I just decided to add more white. And then I added a bit of orange and then a bit of white again to blend it together. And a little bit more depth on the skin, because as you move forward into the coloring, you realize sometimes you can add a bit more shading, like here with the hair. So it's kind of a work in progress. I quite like that because it's not all set in stone. And sometimes if you're not quite happy with it, here's a lighter shade. Can you see that? It's quite cool, isn't it? How he layers on the top of the dark color. I think it's quite nice. Sometimes I think, oh, I'm done, and then I'm like, I'm not quite sure, and then I go back and I actually end up having something even better, because once the hair is done, the skin is done, and the dress is done, then it kind of helps you to work out what's missing and what you can improve on. So I always like to add a little bit of shading in the background. With Copics I would go proper dark. It would look like almost it's lifting off the paper. Here it's more like a little shade, a little shadow in the background, so it's much more, it's not super subtle, but it's a lot more subtle. So I only use 2 different shades of grey, and I just insisted to be here at the, just around the image, just to increase the contrast for them. So here's the coloring part, and now I'm starting with the dotting part. So I got a red gel pen as well as a black gel pen, and I'm basically using the black gel pen where the dress is shaded, so where the dress is the darkest I use a black, and then the red for in between, and then the white only or mostly on the lighter part of the dress. So it kind of increases the contrast between where the shade is and where the light hits the dress basically. And then for the bow, I added a few red dotted lines and then a few white, and I kind of try to create lines that go along, that follows the natural line of the bow, let's say. So here the white you can't really see much, but when you see me add the red, you can see that it will follow the line of the bow. Here you go. I hope that makes sense. Don't hesitate to make it full screen because it should be in HD, so you should be able to see, as much as I see when I film it. And then when I'm done with that, I added a few stars all around. I think it's quite nice. I've seen that on other people's work and I really find it quite cool. Don't hesitate to make some of the stars a bit bigger. Mine were all the same size, but you can make them a bit bigger. Here I decided to add a few more red dots. Can you see my fingers? I decided to add a few more red dots for assuming, it was the back of the fabric, and I thought it would be nice to add a bit more contrast with the top bow that is the other side of the fabric. It makes sense in my head. Hopefully it's nice to look at. You can tell me that. Here I used the gel pen because I found that it's the best way to go over the black lines when you color with Prisma. There may be another alternative, but that's the one I found so far. And I just go around my little lines, and I really like the increased contrast. I think it looks so much nicer, and I mean it works with Copics as well. I didn't used to do it. It's a tip that was shared by Kathy Rakusin during the coloring challenge, and I haven't stopped doing it since because I think it makes such a difference on my card. I'm really pleased with that tip really. So I think most of the coloring is done. I'm just retracing my little stars properly because I thought they were a bit skinny. Make them a bit thicker at the base of the little star. And probably why I should have stopped. I don't know why I kept going and going. It's that moment. I did a little bit of gold as well actually, but the gold is really subtle. So doing it back I probably wouldn't bother. And the stars, sorry, are really cute. So here I go. I just add a few stars around my background. And it's subtle as well, but it's quite nice. It builds up the background, even if it's quite simple. So here I cut my my cardstock. And the thing is that because I use this paper from a pad, I don't pre-cut my card front to the right size, so then I have to fiddle around and find the right size really. And these are cards, US size cardstock. I think it's Coordination glitter paper. And it's the wrong size as well because it's US size and I'm using European card size. So I use my trimmer and I just trim. And that trimmer, I've started using it a few months ago. It was recommended for my crafty friend Ruth. And I've never stopped using it. I never went back to the trimmer. That's a tonic. Is it a yeah? That's a tonic one. I had a Fiskar trimmer. I spent a fortune on blades. So at the end, it would tear. When the blade is blunt, it would tear, damage my card. I would go crazy. With the tonic, it works really well. And here I bought recently the We Are Memory Keeper Shumper corner rounder, God knows what the name is of that thing, but it works really well, so that's really cool. And it looks really sturdy. So I've only had it for maybe a few weeks, but no, maybe no, it was a Christmas present, 2 weeks. But it's quite cool. 1 week, sorry, I'm losing track here. So anyway, here it's finished. I just add a bit of glossy accent because I find it really nice and festive. And here we go, it's finished. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to see my latest video, please don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel and head over to my blog for close-up photos. Thanks again and have a great day. Bye!